Hey guys, tonight we are going to get swept up in one of history's most bafflingly gentle and wonderfully weird hobbies. We're heading back to Victorian England to catch a fever, a fern. It's a time of steam, steel, and suffocatingly tight corsets. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive this era. Not because of the cholera or the questionable factory conditions, but because of the sheer, crushing boredom that could settle over an afternoon. The only cure, it seems, was to develop an obsession so niche and so all-consuming that it bordered on madness. Tonight, that obsession is ferns. Asterisk. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support is what keeps these quiet journeys into the past possible, and I appreciate every single one of you. And as always, I love to see where you're all listening from. Drop a comment and let me know your city and what time it is for you. It's a wonderful way to feel connected, even as we drift off. Asterisk. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Asterisk. The room you're in is quiet, save for the gentle tick-tock of the mantel clock and the soft, rhythmic sigh of the coal fire in the hearth. It's late afternoon, in the year of our Lord, 1851, and the light filtering through the heavy velvet curtains is the color of weak tea. You're sitting in a wing-back chair, its fabric a deep burgundy that has absorbed the scent of wood smoke, beeswax, and old books. The air is cool, carrying a hint of dampness that even the fire can't quite chase away. It's the smell of old England. You shift slightly, the whalebone stays of your corset pressing insistently into your ribs, a constant, rigid reminder of your place in the world. Asterisk. Your life is a study in quiet routine. Mornings are for managing the household accounts. Afternoons are for needlepoint or receiving visitors, and evenings are for reading by the flickering gaslight. It's a good life, a comfortable life, but lately, a creeping sense of sameness has begun to settle over you. Your needlepoint patterns are all the same floral motifs. The gossip from visitors is the same predictable cycle of engagements and minor scandals. Even the novels, with their dramatic heroines and brooding heroes, feel a bit stale. You crave a purpose, a small adventure that is yours alone. Asterisk. You pick up a lady's periodical left on the small table beside you. Its pages rustle like dry leaves as you flip through articles on modern housekeeping. The latest fashions from Paris, which seem to involve an impossible number of petticoats, and a rather dry poem about a mournful swan. You're about to set it down when a peculiar headline catches your eye on the growing national passion for Pteridomania. Asterisk. Pteridomania. Asterisk. The word itself is wonderfully strange. It sounds like a disease, a malady of the nerves, or perhaps a fear of winged reptiles. You read on, your curiosity piqued. The author, a Reverend Charles Kingsley, writes with an almost feverish excitement about the collection and cultivation of ferns. Ferns, those damp, green things that grow in the shadiest, most forgotten corners of the woods. It seems an unlikely subject for such passion. Asterisk. But the Reverend describes it not as simple gardening, but as a scientific pursuit, a treasure hunt ordained by God himself. He speaks of the thrill of the chase, of venturing into wild glens and scaling damp, mossy rock faces to find a rare specimen. He paints a picture of a world hidden in plain sight, a miniature, prehistoric landscape thriving underfoot. He calls it a healthy and ennobling pursuit, especially for ladies whose delicate constitutions, he suggests, could benefit from a bit of fresh air and a wholesome hobby. It's a little condescending, but the idea lodges itself in your mind. Asterisk. This wasn't just a simple hobby, the magazine explains. It was a craze. All across Britain, from the highest echelons of society to the coal-stained cottages of miners, people were losing their minds over ferns. They were buying special fern hunting tools, fern-patterned pottery, and even fern-themed garden furniture. Historians still wonder why, Of all things, it was ferns that captured the Victorian imagination so completely. Was it a reaction to the smoke and grime of the Industrial Revolution, desire to bring a piece of pure, untamed nature indoors? Or was it simply that ferns, with their intricate mathematical patterns, appealed to the orderly, scientific minds of the era? For you, sitting in this quiet room, the reason doesn't matter as much as the possibility it represents. The article mentions a new invention, a marvelous creation called the Wardian case. It's a miniature glass house, a sealed environment that allows even the most delicate, humidity-loving ferns to thrive indoors. The thought of it is captivating. A tiny, living world of green, right here on your parlor table. A little piece of the wild forest, tamed and contained, but still pulsing with life. It would be something to care for, to study, to watch grow. You look around your drawing room, at the polished mahogany, the carefully arranged porcelain figures, the needlepoint cushions you spent months completing. It's all so static, so finished. The idea of bringing something living, something that changes day by day, into this perfectly preserved space feels like a small, thrilling act of rebellion. The fire pops, sending a shower of orange sparks up the chimney. Outside, the gaslighter is making his rounds, and the streetlights begin to cast a soft, golden glow against the encroaching twilight. The decision forms in your mind, not as a sudden bolt of inspiration, but as a slow, quiet unfurling, much like a fern frond itself. You will do it. You will become a Pteridomaniac. Tomorrow, you decide, you will venture out. You will find the proper gear, walk into the woods beyond the town, and begin your very own collection. You will find your first fern. You fold the magazine, a small, secret smile on your face. The world outside your window suddenly seems a little less gray, a little more full of promise. The hunt has already begun. The following morning, you wake with a sense of quiet purpose that feels entirely new. The familiar morning routine, the soft knock on your door, the clink of the porcelain as the maid sets down your tea. The faint gray light of an English dawn is unchanged, yet you experience it differently. Yesterday, it was the start of another identical day. Today, it is the prelude to an adventure. As you sip your tea, you don't see the familiar pattern on the wallpaper. You see the intricate, unfurling fronds you studied in the periodical last night. After a surprisingly quick breakfast, you announce your intention to go into town for some shopping. This is normal. What is not normal is the list you have in mind. You aren't after new ribbons or a visit to the milliner. You are on a mission. You require equipment. You begin at the town's only respectable bookshop, a dim, narrow space that smells wonderfully of old paper, leather, and decaying glue. The proprietor is a wispy-haired man who seems to be made of the same dust that coats his shelves. You ask him for a book on British ferns, and his eyes light up with a flicker of recognition. "Ah, another one," he murmurs, more to himself than to you. He shuffles to a section you've never noticed before, one dedicated to natural history, and pulls down a handsome, green-bound volume, the Handbook of British Ferns. The author is Thomas Moore, a curator at the Chelsea Physic Garden. It's a serious, scientific tome filled with astonishingly detailed engravings of each species. You trace the delicate lines of a maidenhair spleenwort with your gloved finger, mesmerized. The text is dense, full of Latin names and complex descriptions of Sori, Indusia, and Rise. It feels intimidating, but also thrillingly official. This book is your map to a hidden kingdom, and holding it feels like holding a key. This becomes a verifiable fact of the era. Fern identification books became bestsellers, turning botany from a purely academic pursuit into a popular, accessible hobby for the middle class. Your next stop is for attire. You can hardly venture into the wilderness in your silk afternoon dress. You require a walking costume. The very concept is a bit of an oxymoron. The dressmaker shows you a model made of a heavy, dark green wool, designed to resist snags and stains. It features fewer frills, certainly, but it still has a tightly fitted bodice, a skirt that brushes the ground, and enough fabric to make a decent-sized tent. The main concession to activity is that the skirt can be looped up slightly with a series of buttons, exposing your ankles and a sturdy pair of leather boots. It is, you reflect with a private smile, the Victorian equivalent of high-performance athletic wear. It is also completely absurd. But the boots. The boots feel right. They are sturdy, with thick soles and laces that tie up securely above your ankle. Putting them on feels like a statement of intent. You are no longer just treading on polished floors and manicured lawns. You are preparing to walk on damp earth, moss, and stone. Finally. You visit the ironmonger's shop, a place you have never had cause to enter before. It smells of coal dust, metal, and oil. Here, you assemble the rest of your kit. You purchase a small, elegant trowel with a polished wooden handle, perfect for carefully extricating a fern's root ball from the soil. You also buy a magnifying glass, which makes you feel wonderfully scientific, like a true botanist. And then you see it, the most curious object of all, the vasculum. It's a long, flattened, oval-shaped tin box with a hinged lid on the side, attached to a leather strap. The shopkeeper explains that it is designed to be worn over the shoulder, allowing a collector to place specimens inside where they will be protected from wilting on the journey home. It is a wonderfully quirky piece of equipment, specific and strange. You strap it on, the cool metal pressing against your hip. It feels a little clumsy, a bit like a snail carrying its shell, but it's the definitive mark of a serious collector. This is your badge of honor, as you stand there, assembling this strange new identity from boots, books, and tin boxes. You wonder about the others who must be doing the same. Historians still debate whether the elaborate rituals and specialized gear of Pteridomania were truly for function, or if they were a form of performance. Was this all a way for people, especially women, to cosplay as intrepid explorers and scientists, claiming a small piece of adventure in a world that offered them so little of it? Perhaps the gear wasn't just for collecting ferns, but for collecting a new version of yourself. Fully equipped, you return home. You change into your new walking dress, the heavy wool, a comforting weight. You lace up your boots, strap the vasculum over your shoulder, and tuck the trowel and magnifying glass into a sturdy canvas bag. Your reflection in the hall mirror is a stranger, someone more serious, more capable than the woman who sat in the drawing room just yesterday. You open the front door. The cool, damp air of the English countryside washes over you, carrying the scent of wet soil and distant wood smoke. Your heart gives a quiet, steady thump of anticipation. The drawing room feels a world away now. The woods are waiting. You step out of the door, and the familiar world of your street looks different from behind your new persona. The sturdy leather of your boots makes a satisfyingly solid sound on the cobblestones. A sound that declares you are going somewhere with purpose. A neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, peers at you from behind her lace curtains. Her expression a perfect blend of curiosity and disapproval. The vasculum bumps gently against your hip, a strange, metallic appendage that announces your peculiar intentions to the world. You offer a polite, slightly smug nod in her direction and continue on your way. The sounds of your town are a familiar symphony. The distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the rumble of a dray cart over the stones, the high-pitched calls of children playing in a nearby alley. But as you walk towards the edge of town, these sounds begin to fade, replaced by a softer, greener noise. The cobblestones give way to a packed earth lane, bordered by tangled hedgerows humming with the drowsy buzz of bees. Your destination is a small, local railway station, a recent addition to the landscape. This is the true engine of Pteridomania. Just a decade ago, The deep woods and rocky glens were the stuff of novels, distant and inaccessible. But now, thanks to the relentless spread of iron tracks, the wilderness is just a short, rattling journey away. The railway doesn't just transport coal and goods. It transports people like you, city dwellers seeking a temporary escape, a breath of what you've been told is good air. This is a widely accepted fact of the time. The explosion of the British railway network made nature accessible to the middle classes, fueling hobbies like fern collecting, hiking, and seaside holidays. The station is a simple wooden platform with a small ticket office. You purchase a ticket for a stop just 3 miles down the line, a place called Oakley Halt, known for its proximity to an ancient, damp wood. The train arrives with a great sigh of steam and a squeal of brakes. You find a seat in a third-class carriage, the wooden bench hard, but your excitement cushioning the ride. The carriage smells of coal smoke and other people's damp wool. Through the window, the town slips away, its neat rows of brick houses giving way to a patchwork of green fields dotted with grazing sheep. The rhythmic asterisk clack dash clack. Clack clack asterisk of the wheels on the track is a lulling, hypnotic sound, a mechanical heartbeat carrying you away from your structured life. Asterisk when you step off the train at Oakley Halt. The difference in the air is immediate and profound. It's cooler, cleaner, and carries the rich, complex scent of living things, damp soil, decaying leaves, and the subtle perfume of unseen wildflowers. There's a popular theory circulating, whispered by doctors and printed in pamphlets, of miasma, the idea that the foul air of the city carries disease and moral decay. Country air, by contrast, is believed to be pure, restorative, a tonic for both the body and the soul. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with it. Whether it's scientifically sound or not, it feels true. You feel lighter already. Asterisk from the halt. A muddy track leads towards a dark line of trees on the horizon. This is your forest. As you get closer, the scale of it becomes apparent. The trees are ancient oaks and beeches, their massive trunks covered in a velvety green skin of moss. Their upper branches interlaced to form a dense canopy, a living cathedral roof that the sun struggles to pierce. Asterisk stepping into the woods is like entering another world. The temperature drops by several degrees. The light shifts from the open brightness of the fields to a dappled, shifting twilight, shafts of dusty gold filtering through the leaves. The world outside seems to fall away, and a profound silence descends. It's not an absence of sound, but a different kind of sound. You can hear the gentle rustle of a breeze high in the canopy, the distant, territorial call of a wood pigeon, the soft crunch of leaf litter under your new boots. Your own breathing seems loud in the stillness. Asterisk you pause, letting your eyes adjust. The forest floor is a chaotic carpet of greens and browns. Gnarled roots, like the knuckles of sleeping giants, push up through the soil. Patches of moss, so vibrant they seem to glow, cling to rocks and fallen logs. And everywhere, you begin to see them. Small, unassuming clusters of ferns, sprouting from the base of trees, lining the banks of a barely there stream. Asterisk you feel a strange mix of reverence and a hunter's instinct. Its attention historians still puzzle over. Was the Victorian love for the natural world a genuine form of early environmentalism, a desire to be one with nature? Or was it an extension of the era's impulse to collect, categorize, and control everything? Are you here to appreciate this wild beauty, or to conquer it, one specimen at a time, pressing its life between the pages of your new book? The thought is a fleeting one, quickly replaced by the simple, overwhelming beauty of the place. The air is cool on your cheeks. The weight of the vasculum is a comforting promise. You are here, alone, and the real hunt is about to begin. Asterisk, asterisk, you venture deeper into the woods, the path dissolving into a fainter trail of flattened leaves and upturned soil. The air grows heavier, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else or clean, almost metallic smell that reminds you of rain on stone. You are walking slowly, deliberately. This is not a race. It is an exercise in observation, in tuning your senses to a quieter, more detailed frequency. Your new boots, which felt so clumsy on the cobblestones, now feel perfectly suited to the soft, uneven ground, their thick soles protecting you from sharp twigs and slippery roots. Asterisk. You take out your new book, the Handbook of British Ferns, and open it to the first chapter. The author, Mr. Moore, advises the novice collector to begin by learning to identify the most common species. He writes that a true Pteridomaniac does not simply grab any green thing they see, but approaches the task with the discerning eye of a connoisseur. You feel a small thrill of seriousness. You are not a mere gatherer. You are a student, a botanist training. Asterisk. Following the book's advice, you decide to search for one of the most distinctive and easily recognizable ferns, Asplenium scalopendrum, more poetically known as the heart-stung fern. The engraving in your book shows a plant unlike the typical feathery ferns you've always pictured. Its fronds are long, simple, and undivided, like bright green ribbons, or, as the name suggests, the smooth, pointed tongues of a deer. The book notes that it prefers shady, damp, and lime-rich soils, often found near mossy walls or at the base of rocks. Asterisk. With this new purpose, your walk transforms from a gentle amble into a focused search. Your eyes scan the forest floor, no longer seeing a generic sea of green, but looking for a specific shape, a particular shade. You bypass the lacy, delicate fronds of what you guess are male ferns or lady ferns, too complicated for now. You are a hunter with a single quarry. Asterisk. You come upon a small, trickling stream that has carved a shallow ravine in the earth. The banks are steep and covered in a thick, emerald carpet of moss that squishes like a sponge under your fingers. It feels like the right kind of place. You carefully pick your way down the bank, holding onto a low-hanging branch for balance. The sound of the water is a gentle, constant whisper. And then you see it, asterisk, growing from a crevice between two mossy stones. Right beside the water is a small cluster of perfect, arching, strap-like leaves. They are a glossy, vibrant green, their edges slightly wavy, exactly like the illustration in your book. It's the heart's tongue. Your heart gives a little flutter of triumph, the quiet, profound joy of finding something you are looking for. It feels like solving a puzzle or discovering a secret. Asterisk. You kneel on the damp ground, heedless of your heavy wool skirt, and lean in for a closer look. You take out your magnifying glass, a tool that felt a bit pretentious in the shop, but now seems absolutely essential. You hold it over one of the fronds. Under the lens, a hidden world springs into focus. You can see the intricate network of veins branching through the leaf, a delicate dark green lace. You turn the frond over. On the underside, you see the feature that clinches the identification, the sori. These are the small, rust-colored clusters that contain the fern's spores. On the heart's tongue, they are arranged in neat, parallel lines, like tiny fuzzy brown stitches on the green fabric of the leaf. This detail, this microscopic signature, is a known botanical fact, but seeing it for yourself feels like a revelation. Asterisk. You sit back on your heels, a quiet satisfaction settling over you. This one small plant, which you would have walked past yesterday without a second glance, now holds a universe of detail. It has a name, a history, a preference for a certain kind of home. It has a secret life on the underside of its leaves. Asterisk. You remember reading a curious, lesser-known detail about the heart-stung fern. In traditional folklore, it was considered a medicinal plant, believed to be a remedy for ailments of the spleen, due to the vague resemblance of its sori to the shape of the organ. This was part of the doctrine of signatures, an ancient belief that God had marked plants with clues to their healing properties. The idea seems wonderfully quaint, and unscientific now, but it adds another layer to the story of this humble plant. It isn't just a botanical specimen, it's a piece of living folklore. Asterisk. You hold the trowel in your hand, its polished steel glinting in the dappled forest light. The moment feels significant, a small ceremony marking your official entry into the ranks of the Pteridomaniacs. You feel a pang of something akin to guilt. The heart-stung fern looks so perfect, so content in its mossy crevice. Taking it feels like a disruption, an act of theft from this quiet, balanced world. You remind yourself of the Reverend's words. This is an ennobling pursuit, a scientific endeavor. You are not a plunderer. You are a collector, a curator. Asterisk. With a newfound resolve, you begin to dig. The soil around the fern is dark, rich, and surprisingly loose, a loamy mix of decayed leaves and grit. It smells earthy and alive. You are careful, following the advice from your handbook, which stresses the importance of extracting the entire root ball, or rhizome, intact. A fern with damaged roots, the book warns, is a fern destined to perish. You work the tip of the trowel into the earth, making a wide circle around the plant, your movements slow and precise. The physical work is grounding, the strain in your shoulders, the dirt under your fingernails. It's a stark contrast to the delicate, bloodless work of needlepoint. Asterisk. After several minutes of careful excavation, you manage to loosen the entire plant. You gently lift it from the earth. Cradled in your hands is a dense, fibrous knot of dark roots, still clinging to clumps of black soil and strands of vibrant green moss. The fronds, now unmoored, droop slightly, as if in shock. You have it, your first specimen. Asterisk. You quickly open the hinged lid of your vest. The inside is cool and dark, a tin cavern designed for preservation. You carefully place the fern inside, nestling the root ball in a bit of damp moss you've gathered from the stream bank. Another tip from Mr. Moore's invaluable handbook. You close the lid with a soft, metallic click. The prize is secured. Asterisk. The walk back to the railway halt is different. Before, you were an explorer, scanning the landscape for treasure. Now, you are a guardian, acutely aware of the precious, living cargo bumping gently against your hip. The sun is lower in the sky now, and the woods are filled with longer, deeper shadows. You feel a sense of accomplishment, but it's tinged with a new anxiety. You are in a race against time, a race against wilting. Asterisk. Back on the train. The rhythmic clatter of the wheels no longer feels hypnotic. It feels urgent. Every jolt and sway of the carriage makes you worry about the delicate fronds being crushed inside their metal prison. You resist the urge to open the vasculum and check on your patient. Opening the lid would let out the precious humidity, hastening the very decline you fear. This is a well-documented frustration for Victorian fern collectors. The journey home was often the most perilous part of the expedition, a battle against heat, dryness, and the unforgiving jostle of travel. Asterisk. When you finally arrive home, the late afternoon sun is casting a warm, golden light across your drawing room. The house feels stuffy and unnaturally still after the cool, breathing air of the forest. Your first act is to rush to the kitchen, calling for a bowl of fresh, cool water. You gently retrieve the fern from the vase. Your heart sinks. The beautiful glossy fronds that stood so proudly by the stream are now limp and saddened. They have lost their vibrant sheen, their tips curling inward in a gesture of weary defeat. The plant looks pathetic. Asterisk. You place the root ball in the cool water, hoping to revive it, and set it on a windowsill in the scullery, away from direct sunlight. You feel a surprising wave of disappointment, bordering on failure. Was all that effort, the boots, the book, the careful digging for nothing? You had envisioned a triumphant return, a beautiful new addition to your home. Instead, you have this sad, wilted clump of green. Asterisk. This experience highlights a central, quirky dilemma of Pteridomania. The very act of collecting the wild, beautiful thing often destroyed it. Historians still debate the ecological impact of this craze, while many collectors were careful. The sheer scale of the hobby led to the decimation of rare fern populations in certain areas. It was a love that was, paradoxically, quite destructive. Did these collectors see the contradiction? Or was the thrill of possession simply too powerful to resist? You return to your drawing room and sink into your wingback chair, the scent of wood smoke and old books now mingling with the faint, loamy smell of the forest clinging to your clothes. You are tired. Your muscles ache in a way they never have before. Your beautiful wool walking skirt is splattered with mud, but as the initial disappointment fades, it is replaced by a different feeling, a stubborn resolve. You have not failed. You have simply learned a lesson. Your prize is not dead, merely distressed. It needs more than a bowl of water. It needs a proper home, a sanctuary. It needs a world of its own, a place where the damp, misty air of its native glen can be recreated. Your gaze falls upon the magazine article you read last night, still sitting on the side table. The Wardian case, the miniature that, you realize, is the answer. It's not just an elegant accessory, it's a necessity. An intensive care unit for a traumatized fern. Your mission is not over. It has just become more complex, more urgent. Tomorrow, you will not be hunting for ferns. You will be hunting for glass. The next morning, your wilting, heart-stung fern weighs heavily on your mind. It sits in its bowl of water in the scullery like a patient in a sickbed, its green fronds still looking mournfully limp. You check on it first thing, touching a leaf, gently. It feels cool, but lifeless. The guilt has now fully blossomed into a fierce, protective determination. You will save this plant. You will build it a palace of glass. Your quest for a Wardian case takes you back into the heart of the town, but this time to a different sort of establishment. You find a shop that describes itself as a purveyor of scientific and botanical apparatus. The place is a wonderland of brass, glass, and polished mahogany. Microscopes gleam under gas lights. Bell jars of various sizes are lined up like silent sentinels, and intricate barometers promise to predict the notoriously fickle English weather with scientific certainty. It feels like stepping into the laboratory of a slightly eccentric genius. The shopkeeper, a man with spectacles perched on the end of his nose and ink stains on his cuffs, listens to your request with an air of scholarly approval. "Ah, a Wardian case," he says, his voice a low, reedy hum. A most elegant solution to the challenges of indoor horticulture, a drawing room marvel. He leads you to a corner of the shop where several cases are on display. They are beautiful, far more beautiful than the simple illustrations in the magazine. Some are grand, ornate structures resembling miniature Gothic cathedrals, with pointed arches and intricate ironwork. Others are simpler, elegant rectangles of glass set in dark wood frames, resting on turned legs. You see one, about the size of a small writing desk, with a zinc-lined tray and a glass roof that lifts off completely. It is perfect. As you admire it, the shopkeeper launches into a quiet, enthusiastic history of the invention. He tells you the story of Dr. Nathaniel Bagshaw Ward, a London physician and amateur botanist who in 1829 made a discovery entirely by accident. This is the accepted origin story, a piece of scientific folklore. Dr. Ward was studying a hawk moth chrysalis he had sealed inside a glass jar with a bit of soil. He was waiting for the moth to emerge, but something else happened first. A tiny fern spore, dormant and unnoticed in the soil, germinated and began to grow into a perfect, healthy fern. All within the sealed environment of the jar. Dr. Ward was fascinated. He realized that the jar had created a perfectly balanced, self-sustaining micro-ecosystem. The moisture evaporated from the soil, condensed on the inside of the glass, and then rained back down on the plant, creating a cycle of perpetual humidity. The glass protected the fern from the toxic, coal-polluted air of industrial London, which was notoriously fatal to delicate plants. He had stumbled upon a way to bring the pristine atmosphere of a forest glen into the heart of the city. The shopkeeper explains that Dr. Ward's invention, initially called the Fern case, revolutionized not just botany, but global trade. The Wardian case made it possible to transport living plants across vast oceans. Tea plants were successfully smuggled from China to British India. Rubber trees were moved from Brazil to Southeast Asia, and countless exotic orchids and ferns were brought back to England from the farthest corners of the empire, all surviving the long, arduous journeys in these sealed glass arcs. Your little hobby, you realize, is connected to a much larger story of science, exploration, and colonial ambition. You listen, captivated. The Wardian case is not just a pretty box. It's a miracle of science, a miniature biosphere, a portal to another world. It's a little piece of ecological magic. You look at the case with new eyes. You imagine your sad little heart-stung fern inside, enveloped in its own private rain cloud, its fronds perking up, unfurling, reaching for the light. The shopkeeper then points out a lesser-known but crucial feature of the design. He shows you a small, almost invisible ventilation hole covered by a fine mesh screen. For gas exchange, he explains. The plant must breathe, after all. He notes that early, completely sealed models sometimes failed, as the air inside became stagnant. This tiny, thoughtful detail of acknowledgement that even a sealed world needs a connection to the outside strikes you as profound. It's a reminder that no system is ever truly closed. The question of whether Dr. Ward was the true inventor is a quiet, academic debate. Some historians point to earlier, less famous examples of enclosed terrariums, but it was Ward who popularized the concept, who understood its scientific principles, and whose name became forever attached to these glass houses. He was the right man with the right idea, at precisely the right time, just as the fern craze was beginning to bubble. The case is expensive, a significant indulgence. It costs more than a new dress, more than your entire fern hunting kit combined. But as you stand there, smelling the shop's strange mix of chemicals and dust, you know you must have it. It is no longer a luxury. It is an essential piece of life-saving equipment. You arrange for it to be delivered to your home that very afternoon. Walking home, you feel a renewed sense of purpose. You are no longer just a collector. You are becoming a cultivator, a caretaker. You are preparing to become the architect of a tiny world, the creator of a climate. The challenge is no longer just finding the fern, but keeping it alive, helping it thrive. Your drawing room is about to become a laboratory, and you, its gentle, determined scientist. The Wardian case arrives in the late afternoon, delivered by two men who carry it with the exaggerated care reserved for precious objects. They place it in your drawing room, right in front of the north-facing window, as you instruct. The spot receives gentle, indirect light, but is spared the harsh, leaf-scorching rays of the afternoon sun. Another pearl of wisdom gleaned from Mr. Moore's handbook. Once the men leave, you are alone with it. The case sits there, an empty glass box, gleaming in the soft light. It is a stage, waiting for its players. A blank canvas. Asterisk for a moment, you feel a flicker of intimidation. It looks so pristine, so scientific. But then you remember your mission, to save your drooping heart's tongue. This thought galvanizes you into action. It's time to build its new world. Asterisk the process of setting up a Wardian case is a kind of gentle, layered art form, a slow and meditative construction. Your book describes it as creating a miniature landscape. You begin with the foundation. First, you gather your materials, laying them out on old newspapers spread across the floor. You have a small sack of pebbles for drainage, a bag of charcoal pieces to keep the soil sweet and prevent mold, and a larger bag of a special soil mixture you purchased from the botanical shop at dark. Crumbly blend of loam, peat moss, and sand. Asterisk you lift the heavy glass lid off the case and set it carefully aside. The base is a deep, watertight tray made of zinc. You start by pouring in the pebbles, creating a layer about an inch deep. The sound of the stones clinking against the metal is crisp and satisfying. This is the bedrock of your tiny world, the essential layer that will prevent the soil from becoming waterlogged and rotting your fern's delicate roots. Asterisk. Next comes the charcoal. You sprinkle the small, black, porous chunks over the pebbles. This is a fascinating bit of Victorian science. The charcoal acts as a natural filter, absorbing impurities and preventing the enclosed, humid environment from developing a sour, stagnant smell. It's a small, clever detail that speaks to the era's burgeoning understanding of chemistry and hygiene. Asterisk. Then comes the soil. You scoop it in with your hands, enjoying the cool, damp texture. You build it up, creating gentle slopes and valleys, mimicking the uneven floor of the forest. You are not just filling a container, you are sculpting terrain. You pile a bit more soil in one corner, creating a small hill against which you can nestle your fern. The dark, rich earth smells exactly like the woods you just left, a scent of life and decay, of endless cycles. This entire process, a quiet, tactile engagement with natural materials, is a stark contrast to the rest of your life. It feels ancient and elemental. Asterisk. With the landscape prepared, you go to the scullery to retrieve your patient. The heartstung is still looking rather sorry for itself, but perhaps a little less limp than yesterday. You lift it gently from its bowl of water. The network of roots trailing drips onto the stone floor. You carry it into the drawing room like a wounded bird. Asterisk. Now for the most delicate part. Using your small trowel and your fingers, you dig a hole in the little hill of soil you created, just large enough to accommodate the root ball. You place the fern inside, carefully spreading the roots out, and then gently push the soil back around them, firming it into place. The long green fronds now arch over the miniature landscape, their tips brushing against the dark soil, against the black earth. Their green seems even more vibrant, even with their wilted posture. Asterisk. But the scene still looks a bit bare. A true Wardian case, according to the connoisseurs, is not just a planter, but a tableau. You fetch the bag of moss you collected from the streamside, still damp and fragrant. You tear off soft velvety pieces and begin to arrange them around the base of the fern, tucking them into the valleys and over the slopes. The effect is immediate and magical. The bare soil disappears beneath a carpet of emerald green. Your little world suddenly looks ancient, as if it has been sitting here for 100 years. Asterisk. Finally, you take a small watering can with a fine rose spray and gently mist the entire scene. Droplets of water cling to the moss and the fern's fronds like tiny jewels. You are not just watering a plant, you are creating a climate. You are seeding the clouds for your private ecosystem. Asterisk. You stand back and admire your work. The little landscape inside the zinc tray is complete. It has geology, topography, and now, its first inhabitant. Historians sometimes wonder about the psychological appeal of these miniature worlds. In an age of sprawling, uncontrollable cities and vast, impersonal industries, was the Wardian case a way to reclaim a sense of control? A chance to be the master of a small, perfect, predictable universe, where you could make it rain whenever you wished. Asterisk. With a final, careful motion, you lift the heavy glass lid and lower it into place. It settles with a soft sigh, sealing the world within. The air inside is already beginning to fog, the moisture you added starting its endless cycle of evaporation and condensation. Your heart-stung fern is now safe, ensconced in its own private, humid atmosphere, protected from the dry air and coal dust of your home. All you can do now is wait, and watch, and hope. In the days that follow, the Wardian case becomes the quiet, living heart of your drawing room. It is the first thing you look at in the morning, and the last thing you check on at night, before the lamps are extinguished. It has an almost hypnotic quality. You find yourself sitting in your wingback chair, needlepoint forgotten in your lap, simply watching the slow, silent drama unfold within the glass walls. Asterisk, the change in your heart-stung fern is not immediate, but gradual, a slow motion miracle. On the second day, you notice the fronds seem to have lifted just a fraction of an inch, their weary droop lessening. By the fourth day, they are standing upright, their glossy green surfaces looking plump and healthy once more. They seem to be actively reaching for the soft, northern light. You press your cheek against the cool glass, a quiet sense of triumph and relief washing over you. You did it. You saved it. Asterisk, the inside of the case is a world in constant, subtle flux. In the cool of the morning, the glass is clouded with a fine mist, the miniature atmosphere thick with its own private fog. As the day warms, the condensation gathers into larger droplets, which then trace slow, meandering paths down the inside of the panes. Like a gentle, silent rainstorm, you watch, mesmerized, as a single drop of water gathers at the tip of a fern frond, swells, and then falls with a tiny, imperceptible splash onto the moss below. The cycle Dr. Ward discovered is happening right before your eyes. It's a perfect, self-contained weather system. Asterisk, your initial success emboldens you. One fern looks a little lonely in its glass palace. It needs company. The following weekend, you once again don your walking costume, strap on your vasculum, and take the train to Oakley Halt. This time, you are more experienced, more confident. You return not with one specimen, but three, a delicate, feathery lady fern, Pteridomania filix femina, a sturdy, ladder-like male fern, Dryopterus filix maize, and a small, exquisite, maidenhair spleenwort, Asplenium trichomanis, that you found growing in the mortar of an old stone wall. Asterisk. Planting these new arrivals in the Wardian case feels like introducing new characters into a story. You arrange them carefully, considering height and texture, creating a more complex and layered composition. The tall, arching fronds of the lady fern create a canopy in one corner, while the tiny, dark-stemmed spleenwort nestles amongst the moss near the front, like a shy newcomer. Your miniature landscape now has depth and variety. It is becoming a community. Asterisk, this is how the obsession grows. Not in a rush, but specimen by specimen, case by case. A few months later, you purchase a second, smaller Wardian case, a beautiful bell jar model, for a particularly humidity-loving filmy fern you acquired from another collector. Soon, a third case appears on a side table, this one tall and narrow, perfect for a climbing fern. Without quite realizing it, you are transforming your staid Victorian parlor. The room, once defined by its heavy furniture and dark fabrics, is now punctuated by these luminous, glass-enclosed worlds. The air seems fresher, the atmosphere calmer. Your home is becoming a sanctuary of green. Asterisk, this domestic transformation was a common feature of Pteridomania. Homes across Britain, from modest terraces to grand manors, began to fill with ferns. They appeared in pots, in hanging baskets, in elaborate grottos built in hallways, and most iconically, in Wardian cases. This was a significant aesthetic shift. The Victorian interior is often stereotyped as cluttered and dark, but the fern craze introduced a living, breathing element of light and airiness. It was a way of inviting nature indoors, not as a dead, stuffed trophy, but as a dynamic, growing presence. Asterisk, you even acquire a few exotic, non-native species from the botanical shop. These are the ferns brought back from distant corners of the empire in larger, industrial-sized Wardian cases. You have a small, delicate fern from New Zealand and a striking silver-leafed variety from Brazil. Tending to them feels like tending to a piece of a faraway, tropical world. It's a form of armchair travel, a way to connect with the vastness of the British Empire without ever leaving your drawing room. Historians often debate the meaning of this. Was the collection of exotic flora, a form of colonial appropriation, a way of possessing and domesticating the wildness of the colonies? Or was it a genuine expression of curiosity and wonder about the diversity of the natural world? For you, it's simply a quiet joy to see a plant from the other side of the globe thriving under your care. One evening, your neighbor, the curtain-witching Mrs. Higgins, pays a formal visit. She steps into your drawing room and stops short, her eyes wide. "Good heavens," she says, gesturing a gloved hand towards your collection of glowing glass cases. It's a jungle in here." You can't quite decipher her tone. Is it admiration or horror? You simply smile and offer her a cup of tea. Let her think what she will. You know the truth. It is not a jungle. It is a sanctuary. It is your own private, quiet, and wonderfully green world. Your collection of ferns, thriving in their glassy worlds, has become more than just a private hobby. It has become your calling card, a quiet announcement of your participation in the great green craze sweeping the nation. Soon enough, you receive an invitation. It arrives on thick, creamy cardstock, the calligraphy elegant and precise. It is an invitation to an afternoon gathering at the home of a Lady Allingham, a local aristocrat, and, the note informs you, the president of the newly formed Tavistock and District Teratological Society. The very existence of such a society is a testament to how serious this hobby has become. This isn't just a few isolated individuals digging up plants. It's an organized, social movement with its own hierarchies, experts, and rituals. You accept the invitation with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. You are about to enter the inner circle of fern fanatics. On the appointed day. You dress with care, choosing a modest but fashionable silk dress. You decide against wearing your vasculum. That would be a bit too forward. Instead, you carry a small, pressed specimen of a particularly lovely heart-stung frond between the pages of your fern handbook, like a secret handshake. Lady Allingham's home is a grand country manor, the kind of place with more windows than you have teacups. You are shown into a large, sun-drenched room at the back of the house, the conservatory. It is breathtaking. A vast structure of iron and glass. It is filled with a humid, tropical warmth. Water trickles from a small, man-made waterfall built of porous tufa rock, the surfaces of which are dripping with mosses and ferns. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming jasmine. This is no mere collection of Wardian cases. This is a full-scale, immersive fern cathedral. The room is filled with about 20 people, a mix of men and women, all dressed in their finest afternoon attire. They are clustered in small groups, murmuring in low, excited tones. But they are not gossiping about politics or fashion. They are gossiping about ferns. You overhear snippets of conversation, and I found the most exquisite Cystopteris fragilis near the old quarry, but the climb was terribly treacherous, and he claims it's a new variety of polystichum, but I have my doubts. The pinnae are not quite right. You are introduced to Lady Allingham, a formidable woman with sharp eyes and a surprisingly warm smile. She notices the book in your hand. "Ah, a fellow enthusiast," she says, her smile widening. "Come, let me show you my prize." She leads you to the center of the conservatory, where a magnificent fern is growing in a large, ornate urn. Its fronds are enormous, arching gracefully over your head, their delicate, lacy structure creating a dappled green canopy. "The Dickinsonia antarctica," she announces with a flourish. "A tree fern, all the way from Tasmania." This is the holy grail for collectors. Tree ferns were the ultimate status symbol, incredibly expensive and difficult to cultivate. Possessing a thriving one was a sign of true wealth and expertise. The fact that a living tree from the other side of the planet could be here, in the middle of the English countryside, is a testament to the power of the Wardian case and the ambition of the empire. You spend the next hour circulating, sipping weak tea and nibbling on tiny sandwiches. You meet a vicar who has authored a monograph on the ferns of the local parish. You meet two spinster sisters who have turned their entire cottage into a fernery and have won prizes for their collection of You meet a gruff, retired army colonel who now channels his strategic mind into planning fern hunting expeditions. This was the broad appeal of Pteridomania, a known social phenomenon of the era. It cut across class and gender lines in a way few other hobbies did. It offered a common language, a shared passion that united vicars and colonels, ladies of leisure, and amateur naturalists. Asterisk, you show your pressed frond to a gentleman who introduces himself as a botanist. He examines it with a professional eye, taking out his own magnifying glass to inspect the pattern of the sori. A fine specimen, he declares. Healthy and perfectly formed. You clearly have a good eye. You feel a warmth spread through your chest, a glow of pride and validation. You are not just an amateur playing with plants. Your efforts are being recognized by an expert. Asterisk, the main event of the afternoon is a spore exchange. Collectors have brought small, folded paper envelopes containing spores from their prize specimens. They trade them like precious gems, making careful notes in their journals. The arrival of the tree fern codex marks a point of no return. It is delivered by a horse-drawn cart and carried by two grumbling men who handle it like a piece of industrial machinery. They deposit the 5-foot log in your back garden, where it lies on the lawn looking profoundly alien and out of place. A piece of a prehistoric world dropped into the middle of your tidy English life. Your maid stares at it from the kitchen window, her expression of bewilderment confirming that you have officially crossed the line from charming eccentricity into full-blown madness. Asterisk, you cannot put this thing in a Wardian case. You cannot even put it in your drawing room, which is already a veritable forest of glass boxes. Your new prize requires a new home, a dedicated space built around its specific and demanding needs. It needs a fernery. Asterisk, and so begins the next and most ambitious phase of your obsession. You become an architect. You spend your evenings not with novels, but with architectural pattern books and horticultural manuals, sketching designs on paper by the light of a gas lamp. The fernery, you decide, will be an extension of your home. A glass room attached to the drawing room, accessible through a set of French doors. It will be a transitional space, a bridge between the civilized, domestic interior and the wildness of the garden. Asterisk, this was a classic feature of the well-to-do Victorian home. The conservatory or fernery became a fashionable and highly desirable addition, a symbol of both wealth and refined taste. These structures, made possible by advancements in glass and iron production, were monuments to the Victorian love of controlling and displaying nature. They were part science lab, part sitting room, and part theatrical stage for the display of botanical treasures. Asterisk, you hire a local builder, a man more accustomed to building solid brick walls than delicate structures of glass. You show him your sketches, and he scratches his head, muttering about ventilation and drainage. The project is a collaboration between your botanical knowledge and his practical expertise. You insist on a north-facing aspect to ensure the gentle, indirect light your ferns crave. You design a floor of patterned tiles with a built-in drainage system to handle the constant watering and misting. You specify a complex system of hinged windows and roof vents, operable with a series of long poles and pulleys to regulate the temperature and humidity. And, most importantly, you commission a small boiler and a network of cast iron pipes to provide the constant, gentle heat your Tasmanian immigrant will require to survive an English winter. Asterisk, the construction takes months. Your peaceful garden becomes a chaotic worksite filled with piles of bricks, stacks of glass panes, and the clang of hammers. Mrs. Higgins next door watches the proceedings with an air of scandalized delight, no doubt reporting every development to the entire neighborhood. You ignore her. You are consumed by your vision. Asterisk, as the structure takes shape, You focus on the interior design. A proper fernery is not just a greenhouse. It is a grotto, a romantic, picturesque landscape designed to evoke the wild glens where the ferns were first found. You commission a rockery to be built against the back wall, using porous tufa stone, which is light and excellent at retaining moisture. The rocks are artfully arranged to create ledges, crevices, and a small, cascading waterfall powered by a hidden cistern and a hand pump. Asterisk, you have the interior ironwork painted a deep, earthy greenish shade that became so popular during the era it was sometimes known as fern green. You also order a set of delicate, wrought iron furniture, a small table and 2 chairs, designed with motifs of fern fronds and twining vines. This will be a room not just for plants, but for people. A place to sit and read, to take tea, to be fully immersed in your green world. Asterisk, the day the builders finally leave, you stand in the empty, finished fernery. The air smells of fresh paint, wet mortar, and new metal. The light, filtered through the vast expanse of glass, is soft and ethereal. It is a space of immense potential, waiting to be brought to life. Asterisk, the centerpiece, of course, is the tree fern. With great effort, you and the gardener managed to haul the heavy caudex into the fernery and plant it in a massive, specially prepared pit of rich, loamy soil in the center of the room. It stands there, a stark, dark pillar in the bright, empty space. Asterisk, then, you begin the joyful task of moving in your other ferns. You bring them from the Wardian cases in the drawing room, from the pots in the scullery, from every corner of the house. You arrange them in the rockery, planting the moisture-loving spleenworts and filmy ferns where the waterfall spray can reach them, and the hardier species on the upper ledges. You create a dense, layered tapestry of green, a carefully curated wilderness. Asterisk. Finally, you turn on the new heating system. The iron pipes begin to tick and groan as they warm up. You turn the handle on the small pump, and water begins to trickle down the rockery. The gentle splashing sound echoing in the glass room. You take a mister and spray the dormant trunk of the tree fern until it is dark and dripping. The air grows warm and humid. You have done it. You have created a climate. You have built a world. Asterisk, weeks turn into months, and your new fernery becomes the soul of your home. It is a room for all seasons. In the summer, with the vents open to the breeze, it is a cool, shady retreat from the heat. In the winter, it is a warm, humid bubble of life, a defiant sanctuary against the gray, dormant world outside. The gentle hiss of the heating pipes and the constant trickle of the waterfall become the background music to your days. Asterisk, and one morning, it happens. You enter the fernery with your morning tea and see a strange, miraculous sight. At the very top of the dark, fibrous trunk of your tree fern, something is emerging. It is a tightly coiled, pale green shape covered in a soft, brown fuzz. Looking for all the world like the scrolled head of a violin, it is a crozier, the name for a newly emerging fern frond. Your dead log is alive. Asterisk, you watch its progress with obsessive daily attention. The crozier slowly, majestically, begins to unfurl. Each day it rises a little higher, its tightly wound spiral loosening, revealing more of the intricate, feathery structure within. The process is a perfect, silent ballet of botanical geometry. Watching it is like watching a secret of the universe being revealed in slow motion. Within a fortnight, the first full frond has opened, a magnificent, 3-foot-long arch of delicate green lace. Soon, it is joined by another, and another, until a lush, primeval canopy crowns the dark trunk. Your fernery is complete. Your monster has awoken. Asterisk, it is around this time that you start to notice something strange happening outside the walls of your glass sanctuary. Ferns are no longer just in your fernery. They are everywhere. The gentle green fever that infected you has now swept through the entire culture. and its symptoms are visible in every corner of Victorian life. The fern motif has become the defining decorative symbol of the age. Asterisk. This explosion of fern-themed design is a documented cultural phenomenon, a clear indicator that Pteridomania had moved beyond a simple hobby and become a full-blown aesthetic movement. You see it first in the decorative arts. At a friend's house, you are served tea in a porcelain cup adorned with a delicate, hand-painted pattern of maidenhair ferns. You visit a linen shop and find tablecloths and napkins embroidered with the bold shapes of heart-stung fronds. You browse a catalog for a new fireplace screen and find one made of brass. Its design an intricate metal tracery of overlapping fern leaves. Asterisk. The motif appears in the most unexpected places. You receive a letter on stationery with a border of embossed ferns. You buy a small, silver locket, and its cover is engraved with a tiny, perfect shield fern. You even see a Castilian garden bench at the ironmonger's, its back and legs formed from a tangle of stylized metal ferns. The plant's elegant, complex, and symmetrical shape lent itself perfectly to ornamentation. It was natural, yet mathematical, wild, yet orderly, a perfect visual metaphor for the Victorian worldview. Asterisk. The craze goes beyond mere decoration and seeps into the very fabric of the built environment. On a trip into the city, you look up at a new commercial building and see that the capitals of its stone columns, which would traditionally have been carved with classical acanthus leaves, are instead a riot of intricately carved ferns. You walk past a wealthy industrialist's newly built home and notice that the Castilian gates are not simple spears, but a repeating pattern of croziers. This is Fern-style architecture, a specific and recognizable subset of Gothic Revival design. Asterisk. Historians still ponder the deep cultural meaning behind this pervasive motif. Why this plant, above all others? Some argue it was its connection to a romanticized, pre-industrial vision of nature, symbol of the pure, wild places that were rapidly disappearing. Others suggest its appeal was more scientific, its fractal-like patterns appealing to an age obsessed with classification and natural order. Perhaps it was also a subtle nod to the owner's intellectual and fashionable pursuits. Displaying a fern motif on your teacup was a way of saying, I am a modern, educated person. I appreciate botany. I am a pteridomaniac. Asterisk. One afternoon, while sitting in your fernery, you are reading a book of popular poetry. You come across a poem describing a lover's hair as being like the tangled fronds of the lady fern. You put the book down and smile. The fern has even colonized the language, becoming a new simile for beauty, for wildness, for elegance. Asterisk. Years pass. The rhythm of your life is now inextricably linked to the rhythms of your fernery. You mark the seasons not by the calendar, but by the subtle changes within your glass world. You watch for the first new croziers of spring. You meticulously manage the ventilation during the long, warm days of summer. You guard against the first frosts of autumn, and you find a deep, quiet comfort in the green sanctuary during the bleakest days of winter. Your collection is your pride, your joy, and your constant, gentle companion. But outside the walls of your fernery, and outside the gates of your home, the world is changing. The frantic, feverish peak of Pteridomania, that period where every teacup and iron gate seemed to sprout fronds, has begun to pass. The change is not sudden or dramatic. It is a slow, quiet fading, like a photograph left too long in the sun. You first notice it in the ladies' periodicals. The articles on fern hunting and Wardian case management are replaced by articles on a new craze: the cultivation of exotic orchids. These dramatic, vibrant, and notoriously difficult flowers are the new darlings of the horticultural world. Their flamboyant beauty makes the subtle, monochrome green of the fern seem a little dull, a little old-fashioned at the Pteridological Society meetings. The mood is different too. The membership is smaller now, the excitement of the early days replaced by a more sober, academic tone. The talk is less of treacherous climbs and thrilling discoveries, and more of the finer points of spore propagation and the ongoing battle against pests like thrips and mealybugs. The thrill of the hunt has given way to the quiet diligence of maintenance. Some of the old members, like the blustering colonel, have moved on to other, more vigorous hobbies, like butterfly collecting or alpine mountaineering. The fern motif, once so ubiquitous, slowly recedes from public view. New buildings are constructed in the bold, clean lines of the arts and crafts movement, which favors simpler, more stylized floral patterns over the intricate, naturalistic detail of the fern. When you go shopping for a new tea set, you find they are now decorated with Japanese-inspired motifs of cherry blossoms and bamboo, a reflection of the growing fashion for the fern, once the height of modern taste, now starts to feel a little dated, a little Victorian. This decline is a classic example of the life cycle of a craze. Fashions, by their very nature, are fickle. The same forces that propelled the fern to such heights of popularity, its novelty, its association with science and exploration, its accessibility via the railways eventually worked against it. Once everyone had a fern, it was no longer special. Once the fern motif was on every biscuit tin, it was no longer exclusive. The vanguard of taste moved on, seeking the next new thing. Historians still debate the specific reasons for the fern's fall from grace. Some argue that the craze simply exhausted itself, that all the native ferns had been found and catalogued, leaving little room for new discoveries. Others point to a broader cultural shift. The High Victorian era, with its love of clutter, ornament, and scientific romanticism, was giving way to the Wardian era, with its preference for lighter, airier spaces and more active outdoor pursuits, like bicycling and tennis. Sitting quietly in a humid fernery no longer seemed like the most exciting way to spend an afternoon. One day, you visit the home of a young, newly married couple. The wife is showing you her drawing room with pride. It is a bright, modern space, with pale wallpaper, light oak furniture, and very few ornaments. There is not a Wardian case in sight. In the window, where you might have expected to see a pot of ferns, there is a single, dramatic aspidistra plant. Its broad, tough leaves, a symbol of the new, less fussy aesthetic. Ferns are so dreadfully dreary, don't you think? She says with the casual cruelty of youth. Such a fuss, and they remind me of my grandmother's house. You don't take offense. You simply smile. You have heard your own passion described as dreary and old-fashioned. You realize that your beloved hobby, which once felt so modern and adventurous, has become a relic. The great green fever has broken. The nation has moved on. You return home that evening and walk into your fernery. The air is warm and smells of damp earth. Your tree fern, now a magnificent specimen that brushes the glass ceiling, casts a deep, primeval shadow. The waterfall trickles its steady, soothing song. The world outside may have deemed this place out of fashion, but here, in your private kingdom, nothing has changed. It is still beautiful, it is still peaceful, and it is still yours. The fading of the craze doesn't diminish your love for it. In a way, it purifies it. It is no longer a fashion. It is simply a passion. Asterisk, asterisk, the turn of the century arrives, bringing with it a world that would have been unimaginable when you first picked up that lady's periodical so many decades ago. The gentle clatter of horses' hoofs is being replaced by the noisy rumble of the motor car. The soft glow of gaslight is giving way to the harsh, steady glare of the electric bulb. Skirts are getting shorter, social rules are relaxing, and the world seems to be spinning at a faster, more frantic pace. Asterisk, you are older now. Your movements are slower. Your hands perhaps a little less steady, but your days still find their anchor in the green world of your fernery. It has become a time capsule, a living museum of a forgotten passion. The Pteridomania Society disbanded years ago, its remaining members fading away one by one. Lady Allingham's grand conservatory fell into disrepair after her death, its glass panes broken, its exotic specimens succumbing to the cold English winters. You are one of the last of the old guard, a steadfast keeper of the flame. Asterisk. Your fernery is no longer the pristine, perfectly manicured space it once was. It has grown into itself, becoming a little wilder, a little more self-willed. Ferns have seated themselves in unexpected places, sprouting from the cracks between the floor tiles and finding root in the moist mortar of the rockery. The moss has grown thick and shaggy, covering the tufa stone in a lumpy emerald fleece. Your tree fern is a giant now, its massive trunk thick and hairy, its canopy so dense that it creates a permanent deep shade below. The room feels less like a cultivated collection and more like a real, miniature forest, a place with its own quiet will that you are merely privileged to tend. Asterisk. Your daily routine is a slow, meditative practice. In the morning, you check the temperature and humidity, adjusting the vents with the old, familiar poles. You deadhead any yellowing fronds, your fingers moving with the sureness of long practice. You gently mist the more delicate specimens, the fine spray catching the morning light like a cloud of diamonds. You are no longer hunting or collecting or designing. You are simply caretaking. You are in a long, quiet conversation with this green and growing world you created. Asterisk. Sometimes, your grandchildren come to visit. They are children of a new century, loud and energetic, and full of a restless curiosity. They are fascinated by the fernery. They call it the jungle room. They peer at the strange, alien croziers. They trace the patterns of the water trickling down the rocks, and they stand in awe beneath the great tree fern, which to them seems as ancient and mysterious as a dinosaur. Asterisk. One afternoon, your eldest granddaughter, a bright, inquisitive girl of 10, asks you a question. "Grandmother," she says, looking up at you from where she's examining a tiny spleenwort, "why did you like ferns so much?" Asterisk. You pause, looking around the green dappled space. How do you explain it? How do you put into words the quiet thrill of the hunt, the intellectual satisfaction of identification, the creative joy of building a miniature world? How do you describe a passion that was once a national obsession and is now just a quiet, personal quirk? Asterisk. You think back to that first day in the woods, the feeling of discovering that heart-stung fern by the stream, the sense of seeing the world in a new way, of noticing the intricate, hidden beauty in something small and overlooked. Asterisk. I suppose, you say slowly, it was because they taught me how to look, really look. And when you learn how to look closely at one thing, you start to see the beauty in everything. Asterisk. This is the lasting legacy of your obsession. It was never really about possessing the ferns, the vasculum, the Wardian cases, the grand fernery. They were all just tools. The real prize was the change in perspective, the craze instilled in you and in a generation of collectors, a habit of close observation, a deep appreciation for the quiet, complex beauty of the natural world. Historians might call this an early flowering of ecological consciousness, a precursor to modern environmentalism. For you, it is something simpler and more personal. It is a way of being in the world. Asterisk. You sit down on one of the old iron chairs, the metal cool beneath your hand. Your granddaughter comes and leans against your knee, her eyes still scanning the dense tapestry of green. The waterfall trickles its endless, gentle song. The light filtering through the glass roof is soft and green. The air is warm and smells of life. The fever of Pteridomania has long since passed for the rest of the world. But here, in this room, you have achieved a quiet, lasting peace. You have found a contentment that, unlike fashion, will never fade. Asterisk.